Okay. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rollout. I am Linsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
Okay, well, we have a very exciting episode for you guys today, talking about Star Wars with two Star Wars aficionados, Blythe and Red Dodge. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk Star Wars.
Yay! Well, before we dive in, why don't you just let everybody know a little bit about you guys? Blythe, let's start with you.
Yeah. So I am, TTRPG streamer and producer, writer, do all sorts of things across the interwebs. But Star Wars is like one of my oldest loves. So when Linsay asked me to be here to talk about Star Wars, I was like, yes.
And Red, tell everyone who you are.
I'm Red. I'm slightly obsessed with Star Wars. I've had the privilege of actually working with Disney and Lucasfilm on a few projects as well. So it's kind of combining my obsession from when I was 6 till my adulthood with a career. So I've been very lucky with that.
Hey, awesome. So obviously, hopefully everyone is aware, a brand new show dropped on Disney Plus called The Bad Batch, which is a Clone Wars spinoff. And Genevieve and I saw the trailer to, not the trailer, geez Louise, the pilot last week. And we had some thoughts and wanted to share those thoughts with other people who have seen it and love Star Wars just as much as we do, to make sure we kind of get, balanced opinions and everything. But Genevieve, why don't you dive in there?
So we watched The Bad Batch and Linsay and I dubbed it Four Dudes. That's literally what it is. It reminds me of the Rick and Morty joke, like like two brothers. It's just two brothers. They're running around and doing stuff because they're brothers and there's two of them, two brothers. And that's just kind of, for me, the first impression of The Bad Batch was four dudes running around who look exactly alike. And they talk a little bit different, but have the same voice actor, four dudes. And for me personally, I felt that Four Dudes, as I'm going to probably continually call it, was very safe. Like, I feel like Disney has been butting up against the fans a lot in a lot of ways that are, that they have bones of contention with. Like, they're having a really hard time writing good female characters, and they're having a lot of hard time like portraying and getting representation out there that people can agree on and like. And so with The Bad Batch, I felt like Disney wanted to put something out there that was very safe and very much run-of-the-mill how Star Wars has always been. And like, you got like 5 dudes and maybe 1 woman, and that's very safe for Star Wars. And this felt like it was just treading old ground. So Linsay and I watched it together. We did a reaction video. Y'all can check that out. Maybe we can add a
link to it once it's posted
in the description. Maybe in the chat stream. I don't know. We will. But we also were very interested to hear the opinions of other female Star Wars fans and how they felt about it, and how watching that, like, not only like what did it make, like, what does it say to you about the future of Star Wars and what they're going to be putting out, but like how did they handle this in particular? Because it is, again, 4 dudes just running around being dudes. I mean, originally there's 5, but it ends up being 4. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
So let's dive in. Yeah.
Let's go. First impressions. I want to hear what your first impressions were.
I do agree with you on that. It was really sad to kind of see the return to a male-dominated cast with a hint of a female kind of thrown in. And we do see more of her in the second one. But it's almost like that's their formula. That's what was successful in the original Star Wars. And it's almost like that's kind of what they know. And I was hoping with The Mandalorian, because there were so many more strong female characters, that they were going to go that way and introduce more diversity and more women empowerment. But then you look at when the Bad Batch is set, and it's almost like they have to continue on that line of it's all male domination, hints of women here and there. And I don't know if they had more women and more diversity, if it would have then seemed odd in the timeline running of that. I don't know, to be honest. I was
well, what's hard here is we haven't gotten further, and I know that Fennec Shand is going to become a major player in the show. So we will end up getting Ming-Na Wen on top of Omega, which I'm very curious how that's going to look, how we're going to get to see her outside of The Mandalorian, and obviously in Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, when that comes out. I was never the biggest... I'm not like anti-clones. I appreciated that the Clone Wars humanized them in a lot of ways, and I really liked, this kind of take on how war is bad for everybody, including the soldiers. And I do appreciate that Bad Batch is keeping on that theme of like, what does this mean? What is this like? How do you stay a soldier in this regime that is happening, or do you desert? And thankfully, they desert.
That's actually a really good point. I don't think about that either. I don't think we brought it up, but that's a really good point.
I also like they are also technically men of color. They are all based on Tamara Morrison, who is from the Maori tribe. So it's still more diverse than classic Star Wars was in that. Right. And I have heard some rumors that they're going to go through and kind of darken them back up a bit, because there was a little bit of a complaint about the whitewashing. Which is accurate to what like Temuera looks like now. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting line, but they are 4 men of color. Yes, they are all voiced by one white guy.
Yes, and to fair point, he is one of the greatest voice actors of all time, D. Bradley Baker, but he is a white man.
Yes, he is a white man. I get why he's still doing it. He's been doing it since the Tarkovsky Clone Wars. So it's still more diverse. Like Omega is also voiced by a woman of color, and then, like I said, we'll be getting Ming-Na Wen later on. So it's still not the exact formula of Star Wars from the beginning. The story behind this show is that Filoni there was a story he felt was important to tell. So he wanted to make this show. And I'm not like, oh, everyone knows everything is perfect all the time, but Filoni has shown to care about diversity and shown to care about trying and telling stories that he thinks are important. So I'm waiting to see where Bad Batch goes through to the end to see how I actually feel about it. I'm enjoying it. I think it's very fun. I don't think it's on par with like Rebels, which I think is absolutely like Rebels is my gold standard, platinum standard, like cartoon Star Wars show. And it's very diverse, has a lot of very strong female characters, has a lot of people of color on the cast. Like Rebels is like the goals for me. And Resistance did the same thing. Lots of people of color, lots of diversity. So I hope that as we go and meet more characters, Bad Batch gets a little bit stronger in this area. But right now, as much as I love Omega, like, don't get me wrong, her character has been really interesting these 3 episodes that we have. She's still not like an active participant or active player.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that we talked about when we watched it was the fact that Omega is a child. I mean, so yes, she's female. Yay for that. But it's like, you didn't even give us an adult female. You gave us a child. I mean, she's obviously a very special child. You know, she's going to probably have some very interesting powers that come out. I mean, do you guys feel like that maybe hampered, you know, the female representation within the show because she's a kid? I don't know.
I mean, we have to remember kid shows.
Yeah, of course.
So and that's where it gets a little, once again, it gets a little complicated.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think so, because there's going to be a lot of little girls who we talk to who are going to love her and look up to her.
Yeah.
Same with like Ahsoka. Ahsoka was a kid when she first got introduced, but people like love her and adore her, and a lot of people who grew up with her as their like Jedi. So I feel like Omega's kind of in that realm of she is getting in that little girl audience interested in keeping them hooked in Star Wars and keeping them hooked in the universe. Whereas like the Bad Batch and the
That's a good
Clones are
point.
definitely for us older fans.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Ed.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I did think the choice of having her as a child was interesting. A child running around with grown men. But I also agree with you that, you know, Ahsoka was a child as well. And it was really nice to, you know, because you are now spanning the different generations who are watching. So you've got someone to appeal to the younger age and someone to appeal to the older one. And it kind of brings the whole Star Wars family back together again. And I try to think of like, what was I doing when I was 12? I know like my generation, we were running around doing some pretty crazy things on social media back then. So I almost want to say like, I might have been her, you know, if in a different time or whatever. And so I like that. I like that she's emulating a stronger character as a child. She's got so much more potential to grow and do more things. So I do like part of the aspects of it. I was questioning that choice, but I do like some of it.
I'm just going to be a bit of a devil's advocate here with that, because you did mention that, yeah, she's running around with like an entire team of grown dudes. And the beginning of the show, that's all you actually have is like the team of the grown men running around. And I don't think she comes in until like act 2. So like in the midpoint of the show. So I honestly can't say that I think she is used as a selling point to the audience that they're trying to get. I feel like she is kind of like the Grogu, but not as cute and not as universal.
I mean, she is adorable though, but yeah.
She's cute. She's not a Grogu. You're not going to sell you're not going to oversell the million bajillion plushes like before they're even created of her like you did with Grogu. I think that they realized that they needed some sort of female representation, and that this was how they just kind of put a bit, and it's not to say that her character can't grow, it's not to say her character can't become beloved or that she isn't already beloved by a lot of people, but to me it feels like the writers especially didn't make her because they thought she was going to be the draw for the audience they were looking at. They made the Bad Batch, they made the 5 dudes. That was the selling point to them. That was the target audience that they wanted to go for, was the people who would like that sort of Dirty Dozen, that sort of like A-Team style of show. And then she was added on as maybe a plot point or a plot device. And that's just where I'm coming from it. And again, Red and Blythe, you made wonderful points about, you know, Ahsoka and all the female characters that, you know, came before her. However, from my perspective, and maybe it's a bit critical and maybe it's a bit cynical, but from my perspective, like from a marketing perspective, I don't think that the people in the writers' room were like, this will also sell to this like audience base. I think they were mainly focused on the people who would be interested in the Bad Batch, like 4 to 5, depending on how you view it.
Right.
I definitely understand that for the pilot. The pilot is definitely playing on the things we know and the things we love. That the second it aired at midnight, I had friends already telling me that I needed to be watching it because Caleb Dune made an appearance, because I'm a huge Kane.
Yes. Yeah.
Everyone was like, Blythe, you need to watch the first 15 minutes before you go to work tomorrow. And I was like, yes, I'm waking up at 6 a.m. to watch this. So I definitely think from the selling standpoint, you are right. They were marketing the Bad Batch and selling to that audience. However, in episodes 2 and 3, Omega has become a much bigger part of the show.
Yeah.
So I think the story is going to be her story. But they were selling it like, okay, we're going to sell you the Bad Batch because we know people are familiar with them. We know people will watch them. But now it's becoming much more about Omega. And honestly, this last episode was just like 4 dads trying to help their little girl, and it was so sweet.
What was the movie from the 90s, the 3 Men and a Baby, I guess? That movie? Yeah.
we can have female characters in the Star Wars. We just gotta trick people into watching it to get to.
But if it works,
I
but,
mean,
like, it's true. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like, working in production, I have had videos and things that I've put out there that are like, we can't say this is LGBTQ, and I was like, okay, but it is. And they're like, no, just like, hide it. And then once they realize what it is, it's too late because they'll like it. And I was like, yes, that's what we're doing.
That's an excellent point. You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I hate that it works, but it does.
It does.
I mean, if that is the only way, and it's sad to say it, like, that's really disappointing to like come to that conclusion, but if that is the only way in which representation and all that and having those different stories being highlighted and being told, at least they're getting told. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do it until you don't have to, I suppose. But I would definitely not have that be a crutch for writers and for studios to lean on forever, that would be very disappointing if that's
well, I think that brings the larger question, and Red, you can probably talk to this better because you've been working in this industry for such a long time and covered such a wide breadth of sides of it, is that there still seems to be that perception that you can't sell geeky stuff to women. Like, women aren't geeky consumers. And it's like, I feel like in 2021, it's pretty apparent that we are. But, I had the same issue with Transformers, as everyone kept telling me, you're in the Transformer universe, but it's a boys show. It's boys property. Only boys are watching. And I'm just like, but no, I don't know.
Transformers?
I know more female Transformer fans than I do male Transformer fans. And that is not like by a wide margin.
Yeah,
I think I have
that is true.
Yeah, but Red, what are some of your thoughts on all this? Yeah.
So, we see that especially like at cons. Comic cons used to be significantly men. Like, there'd be one or two females in there running around. And now when we go to cons, we see it's at least the one I'm going to, it's a 50-50 split. So there are a lot of women who are geeking out over not just Star Wars franchises, but all of the franchises. And I think it's a very important point to make that it is often marketed as a boy's passion, and then some girls are interested, versus a passion for everyone that we can all be involved in. But they don't really market to that. When you see costumes, it's like, here's a little boy's costume, or here's something for men to cosplay in. And I'm seeing it more and more now, which is really nice. Like, if you go to Disneyland, for example, there's Jedi costume for men and women, and there's a little bit more of that inclusivity. But I do think that we're lagging, and it's unfortunate because there was such a huge fan base around Princess Leia in the 77 all the way through 85. You think that they would have kind of caught on to that and said yes,
yes.
They would see that. I mean, it's not hard to look at the growth of a Comic-Con in the last 10, 15, 20 years and see the huge influx of women interest in that. So there should have been more catering to that. And I think hopefully moving forward, and I know, Blythe, you talked on this, moving forward, there more than likely will be more women appearing in these roles. I'm hoping that that's the case, because it is important to us to see that, and to have one, that representation, but two, like, we love this. I'm love the Star Wars world, and I want to be more into that, and I will always buy a lot of stuff, but I'll buy more if it's catered to me. If you include me in it, I will spend even more than what I'm doing now. So I do think that's important.
Yeah.
And to the con point, a lot of the American conventions were started by women in the Star Trek fandom. Mm-hmm. So, like, women have always been nerdy. We've always been here. It just, Star Trek and that kind of fandom got legitimized when men kind of took it over. And that's how we got where we are now. So it was always a female, like, women were always kind of leading these initiatives. So it's weird that we don't cater more. But I do think with the High Republic and some of the other, like, ancillary Star Wars content that we're seeing, I think there's going to be a heavier push, because with the High Republic, we already have 2 trans characters. We have a bunch of women Jedi. We have a lot of people of color, and you know, those books are probably going to get adapted at some point, or we're going to see those characters somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
And through their announcements, they've said they're planning on going past the timeline with Patty Jenkins' movie. So they're going to go beyond Rise of Skywalker. So we're going to start getting out of the timeline we're stuck in and start seeing more. So I think
that's what.
Well, that was one of our biggest critiques. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Red.
I want to see that.
Yeah. Like, because we seem stuck within that, 70-year period, essentially the Skywalker saga is what all of this has been. And it's like, I'm a huge fan of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic, all of that. And it's like, there's so many stories to be told there. And then like Blythe, like you just said, like stuff in the future. And obviously we've had authors putting out content for the past, decades, even though it's now legends, not canon, but still.
Which I actually did not mind, because as much, we're talking about this now, but I've actually really appreciated how accessible the Disney canon has become. I appreciate how much easier it is for fans to pick up the books and pick up the shows and the movies and understand where it exists in the timeline and how it fits. It's made it a lot more readily available, whereas like me trying to grow up with the old EU, like I got into Revan, I got into Knights of the Old Republic, but trying to get into like anything else, I felt like it was so gatekept or so guarded that it was like, where do I start? How do I start? I don't even know.
Right. It's like there's the little timeline at the beginning of each book, and you're like, where does this fit in? Okay.
Like, what's happening? Why is Han married to like 3 different people at the same time? What's going on? How did Boba Fett survive? Because there was like 18 different explanations for it back then.
Right. Oh God, yeah. So like, why do you think that Disney insists on setting their stories in the same era in the Star Wars timeline? Like, why do we have so much content that just exists in that tiny little, like, I would say from the beginning of, like, from the prequels through to the originals, like, because we have Clone Wars, we have Rogue One, we have Solo, we have Rebels. I mean, and that's not even counting the books or the comics. And we're going to get Obi-Wan, that's coming out. So why do you think that this timeline just persists and they just keep on looping stories through it?
I mean, I think it's because it sells. Like the familiarity with that timeline and that universe. There's a lot of stories to tell. A 20-year period has a lot that happens. So like, yeah, it sells familiarity with characters. Like Rebels is the first time we see really any breakaway from main like characters, main anything. Like Leia and Lando make appearances and Mon Mothma makes an appearance, but like they're not main characters. I think everyone kind of wanted to see the Order 66 is a very popular era because it's like, how did all these Jedi survive or not survive? Like what happened there? How did the Empire take over and erase as much as they did? How did the rebellion begin? There's like a lot of stuff that's not answered there. As far as Kenobi, people just want to know. Like for me, I just love him and I want to know.
I will watch anything. Well, and it's Ewan McGregor, and let's be honest, he's a genius, and we'll watch anything.
We're all watching Kenobi,
and I think
we are.
Period.
For Disney, like as a business, you pick the familiar stuff first. Realize what's going to work. Realize what's not going to work. See what sticks, what doesn't stick, and then you can move on. Like that's kind of from a business standpoint, that's why I think they've done it the way they've done it. Also, Filoni is he's clearly Lucas's kind of prodigy on this and has a lot of story he wants to tell. And I think this is kind of him getting to do that. And he's getting to play in the universe he's always wanted to play in the way that many of us want to. So like,
it's true. It's true. So one of the other thoughts and as I was watching it, especially in the pilot episode, as I was watching this, I kept thinking, I was like, this is it had the fingerprints of Gen X all over it. And I say that as a Gen Xer, because again, the tropes of like the A team, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, Genevieve, you know, you brought up like we have essentially a Rambo knockoff.
Are we? Yes, we gotta talk about Rambo clone. Oh God.
But you know, it definitely seemed like it was created by, you know, Red, you and I mean, Genevieve and Blythe, I know you're a little bit younger than we are. Like, it was kind of like our generation of fans being like, now we get to play in this universe and we're gonna kind of put our, you know, put our stamp on it. What did you think about that? Red, let's start with you.
I did notice that, and I did actually like that because, you know, it's like the familiarity that Blythe, you're nailing all of this on. It's something that I can kind of connect with, and it brings back a couple of these little memories of like, oh, that looks familiar. Oh, I've got these really great, you know, sentimental feelings about, you know, Rambo. So yeah, I already connect to the character, and you kind of almost like already apply memories that he doesn't have, but you have these emotional attachments to that character, and it gets you involved in the story faster. I think like a lot of the familiarity does that, where it kind of sucks us in, like, oh, I like this guy already. Oh, he probably does this, or he's got, you know, these kinds of traits that I'm already familiar with. So I think that's, you know, like for us Gen Xers, like,
yeah, that's a good point. Shorthand
pulls us in a little bit, and like, oh, we already have you guys, you know, tagged for this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that was like, my question to that is going back to the idea of this like character shorthand, using archetypes, using what is essentially, you know, pop culture history as references in order to give these characters their backgrounds. Would we call that lazy? Like, does it teeter on the edge of lazy if they lean into it too? Like, do you think they leaned into it too much? Do you think that maybe that it was just enough spice? Because sometimes shorthand, and when you are referencing, you know, pop culture things, it really does shift into that, like, well, this is a bit lazy kind
or
of
formulaic, or it's been done, or yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me because I'm like, I think about how growing up, Harry Potter, Star Wars, like Chronicles of Narnia in some ways, like pretty much everything I read or saw had a similar chosen one saves. Like, the archetypes all exist for a reason, and they exist to tell stories. And
right,
just kind
but
of how
Harry
you do
Potter wasn't dressed up like Rambo or dressed up like Luke Skywalker.
No, he wasn't. And I don't think it's super lazy. I just think it's, you know, it is formulaic. And if that works for you, it does. Or if it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer on that. It works for me fine. I've never actually seen Rambo, so I have like no connection to that pop culture thing. So like for me, he's just Hunter, not Rambo. And I think that's how a lot of kids are going to see it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Definitely,
that's true,
definitely the kids, obviously, they're not going to get it. But like for people like, you know, Linsay and Red and I, we know who Rambo is. It's just like kind of one of those like pick up and dropped into the episode sort of thing. So that was just kind of one of the things that I noticed, that I'm like, is this lazy? Or is it actually quite intelligent to do this? Like,
right.
Or is it both? It can be both.
Yeah.
I'm starting to lean to like it's probably both. I mean, because people of our generation, of Lindsay's generation, like we like Rambo, so why not? You know? Like, why not? If it works, I guess your company, do it.
I guess that's the question to the Gen Xers, because like for me, Rambo's not a selling point, and my favorite character is Tech and Echo. I like the two nerdy, vaguely neurodivergent ones.
Yeah,
I don't like
which made me think of the Ghostbusters instantly.
Yeah.
Which I did grow up with, and for me, that fun little hint of familiarity is fun for me. But like, did that marketing of the A-Team and the Rambo and the everything like work for y'all?
I mean, for me, not really, but I also nitpick things to death to the point of where I can make things not fun for myself. But for me, it didn't quite work. I'm going to have to give certain things a second chance, though.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I thought it was a bit much.
What about you, Red?
Again, I do like some of that familiarity to a point. I think when it's borrowed or like a slight little like here paying my respects to something, absolutely like it. When it's a blatant ripoff, like we've seen this character before, just in a different outfit, then no, because I want that creativity and I want something new introduced to me. But I do like the little nods to, if you've liked this in the past, you may like this character. It was definitely, when I opened up the first episode and I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm going to like this guy. And then it turns out I do, because he's kind of a hero. So I think like for me, that works.
Yeah. So for you guys, and we've already touched on this a little bit, what, and this is just if we all had our own way, what would you like to see Disney, Lucas, do next? Like, where would you like to see the Star Wars universe go if you were the decision maker? I know that's a big, lofty question, and we have a lot on the horizon, but Red, let's start with you.
Well, I would love to see more female characters right off the bat. I would love to see that. I'd love to see everything after the timeline. After episode 9, I'd love to see more of that. More characters, like not bipedal. I want to see actual 4-legged characters that maybe can talk or have a different language that someone else can understand. But like, Star Trek did that too. Everyone they came in contact with was bipedal up until a certain point, and then they finally got that different kind of diversity. So something like that. But a female doing some really awesome adventure, shoot 'em up, her own ship. And I'd love to see more bad females. Like that's, I would love to see that. Like, like an emperor that's a female. Why don't we see that? Why don't we see, I know we had, female Sith, but let's see more of that. I want to see like that bloodlust and that, fight.
Yeah. Or the Emperor's Hand. Yeah. Blythe, what about you?
I know what happens to Asajj, and it's very sad. But so if you haven't read her book, you should.
It's sitting on my shelf unread.
It's very good. She's wonderful in it. For me, like my pitch to Lucasfilm will forever be like, if they were like, here, you get to make your show. I want to make Mitra Surik, Jedi Exile, Knights of the Old Republic 2. And that is what I want to do. I don't want to pick up on Revan. I want to pick up on her, because then you can hint to Revan, but never give Revan a name or a gender, or like you can just kind of make Revan exist. Because I feel like a big part of the experience with Revan is that you create your own. But I want to tell the story of the Jedi Exile so badly, because I am like one thing about the Bad Batch that's losing me is there's not enough Jedi. I'm always going to want Jedi.
Yeah, which you get with the Old Republic. I've been wanting a Bastille Lashan story for so long. The Knights of the Old Republic video game is still, in my opinion, some of the best storytelling in any video game, let alone the Star Wars universe. And yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Blythe.
That remake is happening, and I can't wait for it.
Yes, I am very stoked. I named my cat Jahani after I played that video game because I just loved it so much. And, she's a cat character.
Arts really did it right.
Yeah. But that's the interesting thing, because when you do look at the greater Star Wars universe, if you look at the books, you look at the comics, you look at the video games, it's like, we have a lot of these amazing female characters, amazing diverse characters. Yeah. And it seems like they haven't, so they're there, they exist. We already have stories around some of them, let alone whatever new stuff, but they don't quite seem to have made it into the stories that are told on the screen yet, which is interesting to me. I don't know.
Curious, because I have heard rumor of oh my God, why did I just blank on her name? Dr. Aphra. I have heard rumor of Aphra getting her own show, which would be an Asian leading woman who is also a lesbian in mainstream Star Wars television, which would be mind-blowing. Literally. I would probably just cry if I ever see a queer character in Star Wars that can't be easily cut out of the movie.
Right.
But like I've heard tell that this is gonna start happening. I'm just curious when. And I love Star Wars. Like I love it so goddamn much that I'm gonna watch it, but I would really, really like to finally, like, regardless of your opinions of the sequel trilogy, Rey is like a super important character to me. Like I cried when I saw Rey because I was like, oh my God, live action female Jedi. I finally don't like. Growing up on the playground, everyone always told me I had to be the princess. I couldn't be a Jedi because I was a girl. And I was like, why not? I have like 8 lightsabers now to prove them wrong. But like, why not?
Yeah.
So when Rey came around, I was like, finally, like, this is such a relief. Like
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that story. I was talking to a friend of mine who has a little girl, and it was the exact same story. I think she was 6 at the time when episode 7 came out, and she was just like, Dad, I'm so excited about this. He's like, why? He's like, because now I can play a Jedi on the playground and not have someone tell me that there aren't female Jedi. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, say what you want, like, as far as her storyline or writing goes, like, you can like it, you can dislike it. It doesn't really matter. Like, to me, that is not particularly as important as the fact that she existed. Like, they made her, you know, like, and because when the first movie, you know, with her in it came out, I like that little bit just floored me, you know, like I honestly, like, it could have crashed and burned as, I mean, it was fine. It stood up to be, you know, it was a movie, you know, it was fine. But like, that to me was, even as an adult, was just so impactful and important.
Yeah. Well, and it also, and again, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier about the fact that we female geeks exist, is when all the merch started coming out and all the marketing and all the toys, and we had the hashtag Where's Rey movement. And it's like, we have a female protagonist, finally, an amazing female protagonist, and she's not in a single one of these toys. And you had Monopoly recalling their game and making a new one with her as a character. And it's like, you know, finally the fans stood up and were like, no, hi, we're here. We exist. We would like to, I will buy her toy. I have a Rey action figure over there somewhere. Yeah.
Right. And see that once these characters are written in and they become canon in the universe, you know, they become real to everybody else outside of it, living, you know, just living on the planet Earth. They become real to the fans. Yeah. And that is where the representation starts to happen, and the acceptance and the breaking down of the gatekeeping. You know, that's where the important steps are made, is that when the studios are brave enough to put characters out there and just be like, yeah, he's a black stormtrooper and he exists in the universe, then it's like, okay, all right, cool. Like, that's great. And then people just start to accept it. Like, yes, this is a female Jedi and she exists in the universe. It's just like, well, it's canonical. It's there. You can't be like, no, it didn't happen, because like, you can't like remake the movie. I mean, you have jerk offs who like
do their weird cuts. Yeah.
A weird amount of time spent doing that. Like, way too creepy to even think about. But regardless, once these characters are made, it gives people the license to actually like step out and be like, this is a part of my culture. Like, I love Star Wars, and, you know, like, you become visible as a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was always a Star Wars fan, but I definitely in high school, as a prequel lover, got kind of that, like, people were like, oh, you can't talk about it because you like the prequels. And I'm like, yeah, I was 6 when Phantom Menace came out. Of course I like the prequels.
Yeah, it was made for you, literally.
Made for me.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right. I was the target audience. My brain was like the size of my fist when I saw it. Like, of course I liked it.
I felt so seen when Dave Filoni went on his rant on The Mandalorian. I know, I probably talk about him too much, but I really respect him. But like, there was a brief period in my life where people were like, mad at my Star Wars opinions. So I just stopped talking about it. Like at home, I was playing Knights of the Old Republic 2 like 80 times and spending all my time on Wikipedia and watching the movies all the time. But like, I stopped talking about it. And when Force Awakens came out and Rey existed, and like, I got back into it, basically.
Yeah.
I started being public again because I felt seen. I felt valid. Valid.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, I had tons of guys being like, well, actually, and I was like, I know more about this than you do. You just don't care. Like, you don't care. You're going to be mean to me. Like, leave me alone. So,
well, and that, the gatekeeping question is really interesting. And obviously we see that in a lot of franchises in the geek community. I mean,
Right.
all of them, to be fair. But, you know, and again, maybe Red, let's start with you, is, you know, we've seen it since, you know, the first movie came out in 78 and then it blew up into this, you know, exhaustive franchise. But then we had, you know, the issues with episode 7. He's like, oh, well, there's no Asian people in the Star Wars universe. We can't have that. There's no female Jedi. We can't have that. You know, it seems like every time the door is open for more diverse characters, you still get those same people constantly pushing back on you, who were telling, like me when I was a kid, you can't like this, you know. Red, what are some of your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree. It is gatekeeping, and it is those same people who want to keep things as it was, whether they're preserving the memory of whatever Star Wars was when they were younger, or they don't want to see the diversity, whatever it is. They're gatekeeping. But I feel like the more we do with Star Wars and the more we add, that group of gatekeepers gets smaller and smaller. And whether it's because their friends are having uncomfortable conversations with them, or maybe they're just getting tired of being, I don't know if I can swear on this, but they're just tired of being like mean people, and they're learning to be better, whatever it is. I do feel like that gatekeeping is getting smaller. Okay, they're dicks.
Yeah.
But I used to, when I was in high school, I got bullied for liking Star Wars. I was also in the marching band, so I had like 2 faults against me.
Me too. Look at that.
But you know, as time gets over now, it's like I meet girls and I'm so excited. Like, oh my gosh, you like Star Wars? Let's totally geek out together. And that didn't happen even 10 years ago. As the newer episodes were coming out, it was almost like we were
we finally
found our allowed to be geeky with each other. And I feel like a lot of that gatekeeping, like, I also feel like, because like as Comic-Con got more popular and like more women were visibly seen liking it, there was less gatekeeping on that, because people were forced to open their eyes and see what they were doing. But yeah,
and it wasn't just like Leia in a metal bikini, which was what pretty much all we had for 30 years was Leia in the metal bikini. And now all of a sudden we've got, you know,
well, we had
Jedi Rey, and we did have Padme,
who's not dressed sexy, and you know, and I love, don't get me wrong, Lick is amazing, but it's nice to see women doing all of the badass moves in clothing. You know,
go figure,
right?
But
the gatekeeping, I feel it's always going to be in the nerd world. It's unfortunate.
It's like, you mispronounced their name wrong. You're not a real geek, you know? Yeah.
Well, and that's like, I don't know everything about Star Wars, man. I would love to know everything about Star Wars.
There's so much.
And, you know, a couple of things you guys were talking about, I was like, I don't know. I don't play the video games. I've seen 1, 2, and 3, and I'm not a huge fan. But I'm also of the older generation. I'm obsessed with, I'm not a purist by any means, but the originals are like my life source. And I love 7, 8, 9. And I love Solo. I also biased. But I don't know everything. And so I want to be that person who's like, tell me more. Not like, you can't tell me more. Oh, you're not part of this. And, you know, it's such a small nerd community. Why aren't we being more inclusive? Let's let everyone in. Let's share our knowledge. Let's have one giant nerdgasm together.
Do you have thoughts, Blythe?
Someone once asked me if you could do away with the sequel trilogy and have perfect prequels, would you? And I said no. Partly because I actually enjoy the prequels. I don't think they're like amazing, but I enjoy them. But partly because of what we were just talking about. All of the little girls who have Rey now, who are into Star Wars now, and having that bonding experience and that sharing. Like, I have friends' kids who are like 10 who are like in love with Star Wars. And they are the ones who got me into Rebels. They're the ones who are like, watch it, you'll like it. And I was like, I don't know. Okay, I'll give it a shot. And then I was obsessed. Like obsessed. But I want that. I want us to keep sharing and expanding. And, you know, at the end of the day, I like almost every Star Wars thing. Actually, I think I like every Star Wars thing on some level. Yeah, I do. Except like 2 movies, and that's it. So I think it's fun. Like, let's keep bonding and sharing and getting new fans. Let's do that.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I was going to say, you know, we talked about conventions, and when The Force Awakens came out that year at Comic-Con, I lost count of the number of little girls I saw dressed up as Rey, and it made me want to cry. And I probably did cry at one point because I was like, this is what it's all about. And you know what? If we get conventions, well, probably not this year. I was like, how many little Omegas are we going to see running around? Which I'm just like, that just warms my heart.
Yes.
You found a spot behind the Jabba the Hutt statue and decided to cry. We all did that at one point or another. We've all done it.
And she's a little girl of color. She's voiced by a woman of color. She is a person of color. Like, that's amazing. I'm also headcanoning. I don't know if they'll go there. I am curious to see if she's a trans girl or not. We'll see. I don't think they'll go there, but I headcanon her as a trans in my head because all the clones are assigned male at birth, so we'll find out. But
yeah, that's actually a really, really interesting perspective. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Lindsay's in my like narrower perspective was like, there's gonna be a female clone elite troop somewhere.
This is what I've wanted for so long. So in my head canon, the Kamonians were creating the clone army, you know, for Dooku and for the Emperor, but they're like, oh, these aren't the greatest people. We're secretly creating this elite female clone army that we will unleash on them should they, you know, go awry. And we've never seen it, but in my head, that's what happens.
Episode 3. I don't know who's caught up or not, but there are some hints that Nala Se and the Kaminoans are plotting something because it's conscripted soldiers are becoming a thing.
I mean, they should be. Their entire life is being threatened. Like, their way of life is being like threatened by the Empire. Like, crappy or not, what they're doing, you know, like.
Right.
You gotta keep one step ahead of those Empire people. You do.
Sorry, go ahead, Blythe.
And we do know that some of the scientists go on to help create the clones for Palpatine, but that's not everybody. Right. So.
Yeah. Well, and they are bringing up some really interesting issues because, you know, we're now delving into the realm of morality. It's like, okay, we've got the morality of creating essentially brainwashed clones who are still human beings to do our bidding, or we're talking about conscription, which is forcing people to join your military to fight in a war, which maybe they don't agree with. And it's really interesting to see them, you know, bringing up those two sides of the coin, especially in this day and age, you know?
Oh, they're terrible.
Both of them are also getting into the inhibitor chips and the morality behind that, which is really fascinating, kind of getting into, is it Crosshair's fault that he's doing what he's doing,
right?
Like, stuff like that, and seeing kind of that. I'm very like, the story of the show is what's keeping me interested, not so much the idea of like an A team. It's more of the like, because Clone Wars did it really well, seeing the effects of war on people and seeing how that affects these different, like the soldiers, and seeing kind of how the fascism takes over is much more fascinating to me than like, I'm like, yeah, we got like knockoff Rambo boy over there, but like, what's this morality stuff going on? Like, what is the deeper story you're telling here?
Well, and I guess that's one thing that maybe that, and I guess, you know, a lot of their shows have done this really well, is like, you can watch Star Wars on multiple levels. You can watch it as the little kid identifying with Omega, you know, this really, you know, feisty, strong woman. You can be the person, the Gen Xer who's like, yeah, the A team. And then you can be, you know, the one that's like, oh, they're really delving into issues of morality and, you know, the theories behind war and everything. It's like, oh, so there's a little something for everyone to find here.
That was literally why I love Rebels. Like, Rebels has so much of just that like hopefulness and happiness, and there's a cute Jedi kid training with his adoptive dad. Like, it's adorable. But then there's also like some serious philosophical stuff they get into in that show. And I'm just like, I love this because this is what Lucas always intended Star Wars to be when you hear what he talks about and how he put his, I mean, that man is a hippie. He put all of his political views in those movies and in the first three. Like, he doesn't hide it, but he tells it through such a simple story that you can just enjoy watching it. But like, if you actually look at the themes and the story that's being told and the stuff that's underlying, it's all there. And it's, I'm very excited to see that aspect of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Right.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead, Genevieve.
Oh, I was just going to comment that it does, with the eugenics program butting up against the conscription, I'm just going to call it program, has the potential of getting extremely dark.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see. We will see how they handle it. Like, and also still making it like a kids show. We will see.
Right.
That's the part that actually fascinates me, is how well or badly are they going to handle these sorts of really heavy, intricate topics. Because sometimes, I mean, I have to say, sometimes they do it very, very well. And then other times they try and grapple with subjects that they just really do not have a handle on, or do not, like, you know, a 30-minute like TV, you know, show is not enough time to, you know, get a point across, or, you know. So that's the part that I'm just like, what are you going to do with this, guys?
I mean, episode
Tell
3
me a story.
Episode 3 did something real dark, and I was not I was like, okay, yep, I guess that's where this show has to go. Like, I don't know who's seen it, so I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, so no spoilers, obviously, because you know, we'll give you the 2-week window. Yeah.
There was a moment where I was like, okay, you're not shying away from this.
Yeah.
Well, in the first episode, in the very beginning, there's a chase scene through the woods. And I was like, are they really going to do this? Are they going to commit to doing this act, like, in particular? This, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, they cut around it.
It doesn't actually happen. And I was just like, oh, okay. So it's not that kind of dark. It's just, we're edging the line right now.
If you know who that character is, you kind of know that that's not going to happen, because who they're chasing is someone who is
I don't know. I don't know who it is. I doubt that like 8-year-olds are probably going to be like, this person. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just depends on how popular, like, if they've seen, if you've seen Rebels, you know who the character is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, okay.
So, okay. So my I guess kind of like big question for you both before we wrap up here is, what is it about Star Wars that you love so much? Like, why are you a Star Wars geek? Red, let's start with you.
Oh my gosh. How much time do we have?
10 minutes. No.
It was, okay, in a really short, like 5-sentence thing, it was the first time I had seen on screen the combination of, you know, amazing filmmaking, a woman interacting with men and on an equal level. Again, because I'm a product of an older generation, so the purest of the Star Wars. But just to see all of this, to have, Leia as a strong character and this leader and something not normal. I know Star Trek was doing it too with a few of their female leads, but just to have someone that I could idolize and say like, well, she's doing it, it was breaking so many. And then to the science aspect of it is, is this something that we can do in 100 years? Can we actually have the possibility of flight? Are we going to be transversing all these worlds? It was, I don't know, there's so much nerddom. And then, the passion about it of like, you fall in love with the characters and, Chewbacca is just like the love of my life, just adore him. And to see, so many people interacting, and there's a love between all of these nations, all these planets, because it's a good versus evil. It really comes down to something that simple and that basic. where we want to do good and help out humanity, or we want to be bad and take over humanity. And you really only have those choices. And it was, I mean, what's not to love? What's not to love about that?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Blythe?
It's so hard to boil it down to one thing, because I started watching them before I could even read. So like I had to have my parents read the opening scrolls to me and tell me what was going on. Like, I have always loved Star Wars, but I think, I don't know, it's something about the storytelling, the epic, grandiose nature of it. I love the mysticism of the Jedi. Like, I am obsessed with the Force, obsessed with the Jedi, and I have been since that age. Like, Obi-Wan has always been my favorite character in Star Wars, even since A New Hope. So when I got the prequels, I was like, yay, I get more of him. It gave me my love of like storytelling and epic adventure and heroes doing the right thing and saving the day in unconventional ways. So like Luke saves the day through a very pacifist, non-aggressive thing. Like, he doesn't fight the bad guy and kill him. He like saves him through redemption and love and caring and passion. And it was like, that was so cool, especially when you're growing up in the 90s and like everything is so edgelord and 90s and black leather. Like, that was like what I grew up around, is like lots of Matrix and equilibriums and underworlds. So like for me, like Star Wars was this beautiful, hopeful story with a non-traditional male lead, with a wonderful female character, with humor, with love, with action. Like, it was awesome. And then I get the prequels and I get this more in-depth like mysticism behind the Jedi and a more complex moral thinking. And I'm much like Genevieve, I tend to nitpick and overthink a lot of things. So getting these complex themes was really nice for me, even if the movies weren't perfect. It was like, I had something really complex to sink my teeth into and think about when it came to the Jedi and their place in the war and their over-militarization and corruption. Like, that stuff was so fascinating to me, even as like a 6-year-old. So like, I just love it, like, so dang much. I don't even know. Star Wars is my life.
Yeah. Well, this has been one of the most exciting shows I think that we've had. I have loved every minute of this discussion. Before we sign off, where can people find you? Do you have anything exciting to announce? Blythe, you talked. You were just talking.
Well, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. I have a lot of Star Wars rants on my YouTube channel. All under Blythe Kala 93. That's BLYTHEKALA 93. I keep it very simple, so I'm very easy to find. As for projects I have going on right now, every other Saturday I stream on Twitch with an Untitled Urban Shadows project, which is like dark fantasy vampire type things. It's very fun. It's 10 a.m. on Saturdays. It's on twitch.tv/it's probably okay. And then every other Monday, I'm on Happy Jack's RPG, and I stream a little game called Stone Top, which is where you are like kind of average people and you have to save your little town, but you're not like epic adventurers who do spells and archery. You're like literal townspeople. Like, I'm a school teacher who happens to know a little bit about potions, but would probably die if a spider breathed on me. It's very fun. That's at 7 on Happy Jack's RPG every other Monday.
Awesome. And Red?
Wow. I am on the socials, Red Dodge and Red_Dodge. A few projects I'm working on, NDA, so I can't actually share them. And I'm a nerd and getting my BSN, so I'm not really out doing much of anything else.
Here we go. Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, again, both for joining us. We've loved this. Genevieve, how can people find more of us?
Yes, you can find more of us by liking this video, subscribing, and please ring that bell so that you get notifications every time that we upload. We upload new videos every Friday at 12 p.m. PST. So please do all the good stuff for us because we want to see more of you.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. And also, Let us know what you think about The Bad Batch. Comment down below. What were your first impressions? Where do you hope for it to go? I want to hear everything. Let us know. Convince me to give it a second watch. Do it.
Please do. Please do.
I dare you. Convince me.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will see you all next week. Bye.
All right. Bye guys.